Now that we have all four sides, we need to assemble some parts. So I have one of them in the clamp here, my three others here. We're going to need two small clamps. Whether they're the red ones or the smaller blue ones, it doesn't matter. Some quick clamps that we can put this together. You also need the jigs. Okay, I've got two of them here. One of them has straight and one of them is angled. And they are labeled. With this one, use the straight bit. The angled one gets the straight one gets the angled one, so they're just opposite. Now what do I mean by that? That is your straight bit. It goes straight up. It's a dado bit. It's got a little collar on the top that runs along the metal. The angled bit I don't have plugged in yet. That's called a dovetail bit. Okay, that's used with this one. So that's the dovetail bit. This is it. It's got the angle. So here's how we set it up. It doesn't matter what order you do this in. But I have them labeled on the inside, toolbox ends, and that's these. These are the ends. This one says toolbox sides. So the smaller ones, the 6-inch straight ones, are the sides. So it does make a big difference which one you use in this case. Now, as you can see, I have the arrows pointing from there to there. Those are the lines. This other one is for the wood safe. So I've got everything labeled, but you got to make sure to know which line we're talking about. What you have to do is figure out which side do I want to see. Personally, I like this one. It's got some more interesting things. Whichever side you want to see on the outside of your box, put it facing you. It'll set up like this in the clamp. So if I can see it and it's towards me, that's the side that'll be on the outside of the box. So I need to line it up with these two lines. Now when I have it up here, I can't even see this line. That's why I have the second line there. So I would line it up right off of that line so I can just barely see it, and I'm going to put the two clamps on, and this goes in a vise. So I have it set up just to the side here. This is the side that I want to see, and I'll take this toolbox ends and I'll set it down. Now be careful that it isn't out like that or off like that. You got to make sure everything is nice and flush, and I move it so I can just barely see that line. Just a touch, and you want to be as close as you can. Slide your clamp in there and clamp it up nice and tight, and do the same on the other one. We do not want this to move while we're routing. We'll have to start all over. That's in nice and tight. Now the key with doing this, so that's the angle, I'm looking, use straight bit, there's my straight bit, is never, never, never set it down with it running. So you set it down here, get it flat, then I'm going to turn it on and go through all of these. Once I get to the very end, turn it off with it sitting here. I'm going to just hold it here nice and flat. When it stops moving, then I'll pull it out. The mistake that's made a lot is it's running and I'll just lift it straight up, and you move it around and that bit will cut right into this aluminum. Okay? So make sure when you're done cutting, turn it off and leave it set. Then we'll move on to the next step. So I have my coat on for this because this operation makes a lot of sawdust. After you finish the first one, and as you can see from my coat, it makes quite a mess. Take these off one at a time so this doesn't fall on the ground. And this happens a lot. People will take the piece and flip it over. Don't do that. This is the side I want to see. So I flip it end for end. I still need that side facing me. And then put it in the vise, sticking out quite a ways. Then we do exactly the same thing, except this time I'll need to line it up with this line, because that's the one I can see. So we nudge it over, put it right there, and then get your clamps on. Then you do exactly the same cuts. Now that the two ends are finished, we can do the sides. So for this one, we're going to need the one for the dovetail bit. It says toolbox sides. Now the nice thing about doing this one is that I can actually do them both at the same time. Because it's straight, it's not angled, I'll do them both at once and it'll come out just fine. It'll also save me a lot of time. So what we're going to do is tape them together. So you want to get them as straight as you can. Take a piece of tape. Let's make sure they have to be the same length and they have to be the same width. Do that and then flip it over and do the same thing. And this is just kind of keeping them from moving around. The clamps themselves, these two clamps, will hold them together better than the tape will. There, I'm going to tighten that up a little bit. Now, stick them in the clamp vertical. So you're going to be cutting a bit higher. However, it works just fine. You got all your pieces done, and as you can see, this is what you're going to look like when you're done using the router. So that's why I highly recommend grab one of these. But when you're done, please blow it off because it just makes a mess. And I'd rather the mess be on the floor. We can sweep it up. The next step is to take your pieces and you're going to dry fit them together to make sure everything at least lines up. Now, I would not recommend whacking them together with a hammer tight because it just means it's going to be harder to get apart. But we don't want to keep them together. We need to put a groove for the bottom, and that's where the intricacy comes in.